learning here today, right, is unlocking the wealth of webinars. And this is the blueprint to 7-figure webinar success. So who this presentation is for? It is for you if you want to learn how to use webinar as the ultimate selling tool to get leads online, to educate your leads, to qualify them, and to have them buy from you. This is also you if right now you have no idea how to structure and run a webinar, which a few of you told me that you're new to webinars, and that's totally no problem. And if right now you have the idea that webinars are simply basic sharing sessions where you spend hours planning your content, getting the technical things up, hosting the webinar, but in the end you have crickets and you have no sales, okay? So this is also for you if you're using webinars to sell your products and services. And the same principles I'll be showing you today is the same webinar truths that my clients in real estate, consulting, insurance, F&B, whether or not they're selling apparels or other product lines, they are using this with great success. And it is also for you if you're trying to gain a high ticket skill of learning how to monetize webinars so that you can be an asset to any organization you want to work with, or if you want to use this skill to create a new business where you're helping other people set up their webinars. Okay. So does this sound like you? You know that webinars are a great selling tool, but you're really intimidated and you have no idea where to start when it comes to crafting a webinar, hosting a webinar, and having all the technical setups and then eventually getting sales. Or you've tried hosting a webinar before, but you ended up with either no sales or very little sales. And you have no idea what the missing puzzle piece is and why others are absolutely crushing it with their webinars with amazing numbers, but you're wondering why people are not buying from your webinar. So if this is you, you're in the right place, and I'll share with you today on the webinar the top 3 myths of webinar selling and how to go from the usual 0 to 5% conversions from webinar attendees to buyers to over 50 to 60%. Okay, so this is a very big difference because majority of the people, they can host a webinar, get all the technicals right, but they never are able to sell. Okay, so you may be wondering, right, why is my webinar not converting well? Is it because you are not charismatic enough? Or is it because the quality of your leads on your webinars are not good? Or is there a problem with your online marketing? Or is it simply that webinars just don't work? So these are all the wrong reasons, right? Why people think their webinars are not working. And there is actually a real reason why webinars don't work in getting sales. And once you know the real reason, all of these false reasons, they just fall away and you will see really clearly what you need to do to excel at getting sales through webinars. In fact, once you know the real reason, which is this top 3 myths and these 3 secrets from this webinar, right? You'd see that one powerful webinar can be the key to your 7-figure success. And you see that the webinar is the best salesman you can ever hire as it converts for you amazingly, even when you're sleeping or doing anything else that you like. Okay, so my promise to you today is this. When you learn the real strategies of running a successful webinar, you will have at the end of this session a clear roadmap of exactly what you need to do to implement webinars to at least double your conversions and sales today. And for all of you who stay to the end of this webinar, right, I want to give you a free gift, which is a checklist of this presentation. Okay. So I give you a little bit about me. So back when I was 21 years of age, right, I created my first multiple 6-figure internet marketing coaching business in under a year. And I've been in the industry for over 7 years, coaching top executives and entrepreneurs from over 5 continents to achieve mid-5 to 6-figure per month income using a marketing strategy that heavily relies on webinars. And I hopefully sold out live events where people from all over the world travel to hear me teach about internet marketing that leads to sales. I've been featured on ABC, CNN, Korean Economic Daily, and Fox News for my work, and I'm an Amazon 3 times best-selling author in marketing. Okay, so I want to share with you about this story about how I discovered the power of webinars. So back in 2014, I've actually started running a successful affiliate marketing business prior to doing webinar sales for a living. And I thought I knew all about what copywriting was. So copywriting is basically writing marketing materials for sales, right? So I could write sales letters very persuasively, and I sold all sorts of different products from books to programs through my ability to write great copy. So when I heard about how powerful webinars are in selling, there's a video format, there's education, I thought that if I write a really good sales letter and I record that, that would be my webinar. That would be my winning ticket. Okay, so having a marketing background, right, I set out and I prepared for that webinar, and I paid for traffic and paid for advertising and drove traffic to the session. Over 70 people attended that online webinar. I delivered my content and packed it with information and all my best nuggets. And I was really enthusiastic. I answered questions, and then people said, oh, this webinar, I learned so much. Thank you so much. And I thought it was a good session. But when I introduced my course at the end of it, I thought so many people would rush and check out for the course after having such a great session when they learned so many things, to ask so many questions, right? But to my surprise, right, only 5 people signed up that day. So I went back and I buried my head and thought, what went wrong? Was it the price of my product? Was it the delivery? Was the session too long? And I thought about it for days, until I asked my mentor, who was great at webinar sales. And he told me what I did wrong. He says, you were a great teacher, but you have no idea how to structure webinar sales. Hear that again. You were a great teacher, but you have no idea how to structure webinar sales. It was then that I had my aha moment. I realized that being able to teach well doesn't mean you'll be able to sell on webinars. Okay, so once I learned this lesson, I trained really hard and I bought many courses, and I even flew all the way to Canada to learn from my mentor, which is the $500 million man who has been great at webinar, to master the art of webinar selling, right? So when I came back today, I distilled the top myths here so you don't have to do the hard work because I already did it for you. Okay, so these are my results for my first month back home, right? So all of my years in affiliate marketing, I managed to make this back in 1 year. I made in 1 month what I made in the whole year because of the structure of webinars. So the lesson I'd like to take away from this, right, is that educating and teaching from webinar is entirely different from learning the structures of webinar. Okay, so let's learn about myth number 1. Okay, just let me have a check-in to just make sure that everybody can hear me. Okay. Okay, can I just check in the comment box if you can hear everything and you see the slides well? Just let me know in the comments. Yeah, thank you, Rina. Okay, everybody else can see me and hear me clearly. I know I have a tendency to talk a bit faster, so if you'd like me to slow down, just give me some comments as well, yeah? Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your feedback, everybody. So I would continue with the slides again, yeah? Okay. So now we get into the good stuff, which is the content, right? So I told you there are 3 myths in webinar selling, and this is myth number 1. You can take notes if you like to. So myth number 1 is that everyone can just write a good marketing piece and sell it through webinars, right? So I've shared with you in my early experience how webinars are actually really finicky. And to get sales, you actually really need structure, and you need to structure the webinar precisely. Every slide has to have a reason for being there and to have every order. It is not like a school lecture when you're just teaching content, because a great webinar has to have great structure that keeps people engaged, educated, and primed to buy from the start to the end. And once you learn this structure, you get very high conversion rates on webinar, not the 0 to 5% that people have, but over 50 to 60% of buyers. Okay, so the mistake that a lot of people make is they always try cloning other people's webinars. The problem with this, right, is that there can only be one Picasso, and the rest are all imitations. If you don't understand the rationale behind why each element is there, you would always just be a fake copy and you'll be missing out on really valuable conversions. It is better to learn why each element is there. Then you're able to have a successful webinar selling formula for life that you can repeat again and again with certainty and results. Okay? And I'm not only talking about the webinar structure itself, when you have slides in a certain order and you understand why each element is there. I'm also talking about the structure of promotions. You see, you need a promotional plan from your webinar, and there's this one that we follow that you might like to clone. So what we do, right, we plan a webinar on a Thursday, and from Monday to Wednesday, we heavily promote that webinar. Even sometimes on Thursday morning itself, we promote that webinar really heavily, and then we have the live session on Thursday. And then we continue promoting the webinar replays on Thursday to Sunday. And when you plan your webinar campaigns this way, you get enough traffic on board, then you convert them on the webinar itself, and then you have a back-end follow-up. Very few people realize this. A lot of people, they just have one webinar on one day, they drive a lot of traffic to it, and then that's it. But did you guys actually know that 50% of your sales are actually made after the webinar day itself? Meaning on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you're actually making half of all of your profits. So imagine you didn't know this, right? And you only had one selling window, which is the live webinar itself. It means that you're sitting out on half of all of your profits. Okay, so this is the structure of what we use that I'll be teaching you in the course. So Monday to Wednesday, or even Thursday morning, we heavily promote those webinars. We have a structure in place. Thursday, we run a webinar, we make half of our sales, and then we do follow-up from Friday to Sunday. So it has to be like a whole system that really works well for you. Okay. So this is my client, Valerie, and she sells healthy bento sets and she provides nutritional talks to her clients. She used to have video webinars where she would charge only $10 for people to attend. Then she would try to upsell them to a private coaching or talks. But without a proper structure, she struggled to even get 5 attendees to the event, and then she had 0 sales on the back end. But after working with me and learning how to structure webinars and webinar promotions, there are 2 elements, yeah? The webinar itself and the webinar promotions. Within 3 days, she's booked solid on a webinar. And in her first weekend, she did over 7Ks in sales from webinar. So imagine this, if you just had one webinar that has the power to do that for you within a week, wouldn't that be incredible? Just learning structure of webinar and promotional structure. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about myth 2 now. So myth 2 is this: I need to focus on talking about my products and services to build credibility. So a big part, right, about what successful webinars are supposed to do for you is to brand you or your company very well. And people should be able to like you and trust you before they buy from you. A lot of people have the misconception that in order to do this, you have to brag about yourself and your achievements, or how your product and service is the best thing since sliced bread. So they talk about how they are the best, how their service is the best, better than all of the rest and all of the competition. Okay, but this is simply not true, and it's really a myth. Because once people feel that you are selling to them, they are naturally turned off by it. And nobody likes to be sold to. People like to buy. We've heard this all along, right? So when we like to buy, we like to come to buying decisions by ourselves. So when I'm telling you here, talking about your products and services too much is the #1 killer in webinar sales. Surprise, surprise, right? Because a lot of people plan their whole webinars talking about the company's product, talking about sales, because they think it will build credibility. So the question you have for me here would probably be, okay, Tavia, so I shouldn't be talking about my products or my services to get sales. So what should I talk about? How do I build my credibility? Okay, and this is the key answer. So take note, guys. So the answer is to be directly relevant to your prospects' problems. Once you are directly relevant, your customers really don't care if you are not the first company or the best person that can provide a certain product or service, because you become directly relevant in their lives. They don't look at all of those things, and they really just go to you because of you. Okay, and your webinar has to be able to be directly relevant to your prospects' problems. Okay, so this may seem a bit abstract for you and you might not understand. So let me give you an analogy. Okay, imagine, right, that you have a pain in your back, okay? And then it's really, really painful from the end of your back to the top of your neck, right? And one day as you're going out for lunch, you're just telling your friend, hey, you know, I have this huge pain in my tailbone, in my lower back, and it's tensing up and squeezing my spine, and then it goes all the way up. And the pain shoots through my neck and it really, really hurts, and then it goes up and down again. Just imagine you tell your friend that. And then suddenly, right, a homeless man happens to listen to this conversation. He walks up to you and he describes the situation. He says, like, hey, excuse me, are you talking about that pain that goes from your tailbone and then up your neck and down again about 7 times? And sometimes you feel some tingling in your ears. And then you say, yes, that's exactly how I feel. And then the homeless man said to you, okay, I had that problem too. And this is what you can do. You just go home and you take an ice bath. And after an ice bath, you just drink some hot ginger tea and then it'll be gone. Hey, you would probably try that out, right? Doesn't matter if he's homeless or not, but because that man was able to tell you and relate to you exactly what your problem was and become directly relevant to you in the way he was describing the problem, you immediately felt that this guy had an answer and the solution to what you're suffering from. Similarly, when you're able to get attention of someone like that, and you're able to make yourself directly relevant to your prospects, you really do not need any certificates or to brag about your achievements or to brag about your company's products or services. Because even though that homeless man, he doesn't have certificates, he doesn't have the look that gives you a lot of trust, right? Or he doesn't have anything, any of that, and he doesn't brag about what he can do for you, but you still trust him because he was able to become directly relevant to you. So this is what I want you to take home. How can you gain credibility without talking and boasting about your company's products and services? The answer is to become directly relevant to your prospects. And you have to be able to deliver this in a webinar form. Okay? So my client, Adrien, he's a successful agency director at an insurance company. and he has great success with live sales for the last 27 years. When it came to personal selling online, he was really the best. He could meet every single objection. He had so many Star Club awards that he's a member of the MDRT, which is a great achievement in their line of insurance, okay? However, when he tried to go online and get sales through webinars, right, he hit roadblock after roadblock. And one of the greatest issues I identified for him, right, was that he had 7 whole slides in his webinars, all about his achievements and why clients should trust him. And this was a major turnoff because we noticed that many people exited the webinar at that time. You see, in real life, right, the client probably lets you keep talking. Imagine you're meeting them face-to-face for coffee. They let you keep talking. But in webinars, people can just shut off and leave the webinar if they don't like what you're saying, especially if you're talking about yourself. So I showed him how to demonstrate credibility without focusing on himself. So the key is this, right? Being directly relevant to your prospects' problems. And his conversion rates went up over 50%. Not only did his sales revenue increase, but his prospects come to him and respect him greatly, as he has successfully primed them to see him as an authority and as someone they can trust. And this also helped his agency not only in sales, but in recruitment. When you learn how to gain credibility whilst you run a webinar, what kind of new sales and new opportunities can you foresee will open up for you? Right? When you're no longer talking about your products, your services, but you're able to cleverly prime yourself through a webinar to become directly relevant to your prospects' problems, and then you gain credibility. Okay, so myth 3. We are powering through. This is the last myth. Okay, so myth 3 is this. People always see webinars as a standalone marketing wonder. So they think to themselves, once the webinar is done, sales is done. Okay. Yep. We have Joycelyn join the line. Do you have any questions for me? Just let me see. Yeah. Okay, let me just check back with you. Okay. All right, so everybody can still hear me, right? Can I resume the presentation? Just let me know you're still following. Yep, thank you. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to myth number 3, which is thinking that once webinar is done, sales is done, and that webinar is a standalone marketing wonder. So I've mentioned earlier how 50% of the sales are actually made on the back end, not live on the webinar itself. Okay, and there's a big importance in having the right tools set up so that your webinar collects all the right data for you. So write this down, the importance of data collection, from webinar registration pages to thank you pages to the live webinar. And you need to have the ability to segment the crowd to do follow-ups after the webinar. Again, you need to collect the data to be able to segment the crowd and then to do follow-ups after the webinar. Okay, see, right? I specialize in webinar selling. So you think that I'll be the one to tell you that to do a great webinar, that is all you need. Once you learn the structure, once you learn how to promote, once you learn how to set up your credibility in a way that's directly relevant to your prospects' problems, you're good, right? But as somebody who has ran webinars for the last 7 years, I know for a fact that you need a full system to be able to maximize your profits. You see, you will have a number of people who, because of your promotions, will sign up for a webinar, but they might forget to attend. And you would also have people who would come for your webinar, but they do not stay until the end. And you have people that buy on webinar, and you will also have people that do not buy on a webinar. So you need to segment to each group of people and speak to them differently. Because you think about this in real life. Some prospects agree to go for an appointment with you, and then they don't appear. Some prospects come for the appointment with you, but then they leave halfway. Some prospects very, very close to a buying decision, but then they didn't buy. And some prospects, they buy right on the first meeting, right? So because there are so many different types of prospects, in real life, you would also segment them and talk to each of them differently. So it should also be the same when it comes to webinar selling. Just because you change the environment of webinar selling doesn't mean that you talk to everybody the same way. So your follow-up has to have the right pixels installed to help you gather the right data and to follow up with them differently. Okay, so write this down. Part of being great in webinars is also knowing the limitations of webinars as a standalone marketing tool. So the point of all of this marketing, right, should only be for one thing, which is to get results for you. And for you, that might most probably be sales. And this is where you also need to learn how to change the selling environment to suit your product and service. Okay, so depending on your products and service, not everything can be sold on webinars. For example, if you're in real estate, right, and you're in insurance, with certain price points, that you're selling something $8,000 and above, it would at least require a phone call to establish trust, or you would have to meet your clients face to face, right? So I would say that in my experience, what really works well with webinar selling live and in the follow-ups are products less than 3,000 US dollars. However, if you're selling something that's of higher value, like 8,000 and above, right, which we consider higher ticket items, webinars are very important, that they help you establish the trust, get the right clients, prime them, educate them. Then after that, there might be a follow-up in your sales system, be it calls, be it live meetings. But then the bulk of the heavy lifting is actually done by webinar itself. So I want all of you to be realistic about that, okay? So you'd also have to learn how to implement really strong email follow-ups so that you can maximize every single lead that you've worked so hard and you spend money to acquire. And it is when you have all the pieces of the puzzle, that's when the webinar really works like a charm. So my client, Paul, he's a business consultant, and he learned the art of webinar sales from me, and he did 5 figures in his first month. Because he's a young guy, he wanted to get off the ground really quick, and he only relied on my webinar teachings. So using my first myth, he learned how to structure the webinar, how to do promotions for a webinar, how to do the follow-up, right? But then he never really segmented the crowd, and he only relied on webinar itself, right? So he also did not learn any automation, any email integration, and it's not too shabby results he got. He did 5 figures in his first month. But when I sat down and did a review for him and helped him realize the leakages and areas he might follow up on, his sales revenue actually doubled because he managed to fix the leaks in his sales funnels and realized the importance of having an end-to-end system. Because the truth is, webinars are really amazing because once you have a really good version that educates really well, that gets the prospects engaged, that builds your credibility, you can turn that into an automated webinar. Okay, and with all of these sophisticated tools that I'll teach you in the course, you would be able to mimic a live webinar environment. This means that even whilst you sleep, there will be a great marketing salesman working for you, repeating the thing that you'd have no time or energy to say to thousands of people at a time, and delivering red hot prospects to you by the time the session is done. And most of this follow-up, right, is also done via email, and the touch points can actually all be automated. This means that there's less time spent selling for you and then more time closing sales. So how would you think your life would change if 90% of all of your selling is actually done through automated webinars? Instead of you having to go out and to do your sales pitch again and again to meet the right prospects. Okay. This is what I shared just now. You can automate your best live webinars and then have the tools to simulate a live environment. So you're automating it, but then you make it look live, right? And then you have this great salesman that would do the work for you again and again and again. Personally, for our company, we've had one webinar give us 7-figure sales in a year, and I've not touched a webinar ever since I had a really good version, right? So today I've covered with you myth 1, myth 2, and myth 3. So myth 1, it's not true that anybody can just write a good marketing piece and sell through webinars. You really need a clear structure for your presentation. You need to understand the reason and rationale behind every single slide and why each element is there. And you also need to have a really clear webinar promotion plan. Okay, so structure, structure, structure. Myth 2, do not talk about your products and services to build credibility. So building credibility is best done by being directly relevant to your client, like the homeless man in the back pain analogy I gave you, and not by being a show-off. So you need to do this smartly through a webinar. And myth 3, webinars are really not a standalone marketing wonder, and webinars are even more powerful when it's used as part of an integrated sales funnel with automation and follow-up. Okay. So you might like to take a screenshot of this page since we're on here now, the takeaways for this webinar. Okay, I would stay here for 10 seconds so you can take this down. Okay. Yeah. So my promise to you on this webinar, right, is that when you learn the real strategies to running a successful, powerful webinar, you'd have by the end of the session a clear roadmap of exactly what you need to do to implement webinars to at least double your conversion and sales. And I've covered most of what I can, which is the top 3 myths, right, within this short session alone. But here is what you really need to win. Okay, you need to learn how to structure a 7-figure perfect webinar. Have this in your arsenal. Number 2, you need to learn how to structure webinar promotions, okay, including all the registration pages, all the indoctrination pages, the welcome videos, everything. right? And then the follow-ups is very important. Number 3, you can have my step-by-step, word-for-word 7-figure webinar that we've used in our own business and we've implemented for our clients to clone from and to understand the psychology behind each element. And number 4, you will learn how to structure webinar registration pages, thank you pages, webinar campaigns to maximize signups. Okay? And to learn how to build credibility through your presentation without bragging about yourself and your service. And also learn which automation tools and best practices are used for conversions, because even if you just implement one, you could see conversions increase by 10% overnight, which it's a huge figure, especially over time. Okay, and you also learn the exact winning email templates and frequency for follow-up and segmentation. So this is what you need to win to have a 7-figure webinar that does all the heavy lifting for you, that acts as your best salesman in your company, right? Okay, so this is the school we are with, AventisLearning Group, and this is who we are and what we do. Established since 2008, we are an award-winning corporate training provider and offer a suite of different seminars and courses. So this one here is obviously about monetizing webinar, which I give you a page again. This would be what we'll be learning on the course itself. Okay, you can take a screenshot of this as well. Yeah. And then this would be the page. If you'd like to enroll in my course, it will be next week, Wednesday, 3rd of June, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's a full day session when I'll actually sit down with all of you, each participant, and then help you to plan out and build out a webinar. So I personally am not the kind of student or teacher that likes to sit in the course and just learn content for the sake of it. I like it to be directly relevant, that I can apply in my business straight away, or I can apply straight away to gain a skill and then use it to generate income, right? Or use it to get hired somewhere and to be an asset to any organization. So if this is you, I'd like you to come in for my hands-on session when I will show you exactly what we do from start to finish. How do we plan promotions? How do we plan each slide? How do we do follow-ups such that by the end of the session, right, in just one day, you'll walk out with a fully done webinar. So we'll be doing this together, and then we can also tailor this to the industry that you're in. Okay, so this is the page that you'd want to screenshot, and then you can scan this QR code to register now. And there is also a promo code for all of you that attended this webinar live, and then the code is live20 for a 20% discount. Okay, so just do a screenshot of this page, and now it's stop sharing the screen so we can take some questions. Okay, so no worries, everybody. Thank you for paying attention. I'll take some questions. So if any of you have any questions, you can just type them in the comment box and I'll be very happy to answer them for you. Okay, so we have a question from Salil, or like Salil. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. How can post-webinar follow-up be automated? Okay, so this is a very good question, and it really depends on what business you're in. I would say that every business, most of it, right, you can have an email automation tool that actually sends specific emails to specific group of people. So we're using a software that I'll be introducing in the class where you can plan emails to be sent out, let's say an hour after the webinar or 6 hours after the webinar. And those follow-ups can be automated. So either through email, through SMS, or it could be physically following up with a client through appointment making systems, which I will also share with you the tools that we're using, or it can also be phone follow-up, right? So it really depends on the industry you're in, and I want to tailor this for everybody because I've worked with a lot of different industries, from real estate, insurance, consultants, therapists, people running F&B, people doing a range of services and products. So each funnel has a very different follow-up that we need to talk about. Yeah. Yeah. So Carmen asks, if I were to attend the full course, may I know what else will you be covering? Okay, so Carmen, this session, right, would basically be talking about webinar monetization. So if let's say right now you don't have a webinar, or you have a webinar but it's not converting very well for you, we'll be doing from A to Z, start to finish, everything that you need in webinars conversion. So from structuring the webinar promotions, having all the email follow-ups, email segmentation, automation of your webinars, and webinar registration page, what are the elements needed, and then understand the psychology of everything and putting it all together. So end to end, having a very powerful webinar. And I think if you ask me personally, when I paid over 6 figures and flew to Canada to learn from my mentor, right? The greatest takeaway for me is to understand the psychology of webinar selling, and then also having to clone his 7-figure webinar. So word for word, getting to see the webinar, getting to implement that in my own business. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question. If there's anything specific you'd like to ask, you can definitely do that in the chat box. Yeah, no problem, Carmen. Hope to see you in the course. Okay, so Datan says, will this work for charity or non-profit industry? Our context of sales would be call for volunteers, donationship, sponsorship, or cash in kind. Yeah, Datan, definitely. So it will definitely work for charity or non-profit industry, because you're basically looking for sponsorships, right? Or like volunteers. So you would want to be able to do this on a large scale, to have a webinar automated so that you can speak to people, establish your credibility, and then have people who see your vision and see what you're asking for come to work with you. So it would definitely work. The structures for getting people to join your course is the same for the structure to getting people to invest in you. So we've used the same slides, right, for startups that would like to get investment. And we've not applied it in the charity case before, but then you could see how the conversion would be there, because it's really a structure of persuasion. Yeah, no problem. Happy to answer your question. Yeah, so how to teach, right? Like it would be 9 to 4, and it would be a full day event, which will be very intense. I would like you to have your laptop there, because we'll be working together slide by slide, so that by the end of the day, you would actually have a working webinar that you can already record and then put it out there. Because a lot of people, when they try to do it by themselves, they always get so many things wrong. As I said, there can only be one Picasso, everybody else is a clone. So what I hope for you to do is that when you learn slide by slide from me, I'll explain to you the rationale behind why something is, so that when you understand the format, you can make your own webinar, which I would approve for you, to let you know what would be the highest conversion rates from that. Yeah. So we'll do it together on the full day course. Okay. So anybody in the room has, yeah, so the full day course is happening next Wednesday. It would be 3rd of June. It would be an online event, and yeah, let me find the, okay, later on I think the Aventis school can put up a message or send you guys an email to let you know the course date again. It's 3rd of June. So from 9 to 4. Yeah, so Chai Fen asks, how can we track the conversion rate? Very good question. So the conversion rate, right, is something that it's tracked using our own webinar software itself. So the software would show you exactly how many visitors are there to your webinar registration page, how many % converted. It would even show you, like say your webinar is 1 hour long, it would show you how many % of people fully watched the webinar, how many % of people left at the 15-minute mark, at the half an hour mark, and so on and so forth. So it shows you where your greatest dropout rate is. So I've also said earlier, right, that when you have the best webinar that you notice most people watch to the end and most people buy, that webinar, we do it as many times live until you get so good at webinar selling that we turn the best version into an automated version. And that's how you have a webinar salesman that does work for you even when you sleep. Okay, so our webinar software that we're using not only tracks conversion rates, but we are able to drop pixels and data. I know it's a bit technical right now, don't worry about it. I'll teach you this in the course. Drop pixels and data, so that even those people who don't finish watching your webinar, or those people that signed up but never attend your webinar, will be able to track them and follow them all around the internet, so that they come and attend your webinar again. And that's how you can do the 50% of follow-up. Okay, yeah. So we now be sharing the software in the course itself, and sharing how to put everything together. So most people who try to do webinars by themselves, right, and they try to use all various softwares, they have to buy at least 4 different softwares. Why? They have to get a webinar registration page, like a lender. They'd have to get a tracking analytics tool. They would have to have the webinar itself, the live webinar recording tool. They would have to have an automation tool. They would have to have an email follow-up tool. But the software that we use, right, is all in one. Yeah, so it's only one software, and then you have all of these features. Yeah, so the software webinar is actually a paid software. It is less than $500 for a whole year. So that one is a great investment in your business, because any other business that you want to start, right, you'd have to have so many tools, so many more employees, and it really doesn't have this kind of ROI. So it's just 500 one time, not paid to me, just for you to go and buy the software yourself. And that's the only software you need to run this business. So Mukesh, please send course details in email. Yeah, I'm sure we'll work together with Aventis to send all of you these emails. So just check your inbox and even the junk mail, okay? And in the email itself, we'll also be sending the promo code for you to get 20% off. And this is only for participants who are live here today. So as long as you're live here today, you appeared, your name will be tracked, and then we would give you that 20% once you've put in that promo code. Yeah? Okay. So we take any more questions. If you have, just let me know. No problem. Thank you for your question, Chai Fan. So if you don't feel very comfortable to share what industry you're in, or in this comment box, don't worry, because when you sign up for the live course itself, right, I would actually look at exactly what industry you're in and recommend the best webinar structure for you, including the follow-ups, because every industry should have a different follow-up, and I'll let you know what follow-up works best for your industry. Okay. Yeah. So if there's no more questions, you let me know, and then I'll just put the last page up so you guys can have the details to the actual course itself. So it's also okay if right now you have, maybe you want to pivot your business idea, or you have no idea what would work for webinar best, because as long as you have a skill, right, or something that you can teach to people, I can show you how to package that into a webinar. Even if your skill would be to learn from me, to learn how to do webinars, and then you want to turn that into a marketing product when you're helping other businesses run successful webinars that you can monetize from a 0 to 5% conversion rate to over 50% conversion rate. That itself can be a new business idea. So I can teach you how to do that, and then you turn that into a course which you market through webinars, and that could be your new high ticket skill. Okay, so I just want to share with you that usually when I conduct lessons and my own consultation, right, the prices are really not this price. And this course is only, I think, 600 the last I checked with the founder of the school. And you also have a 20% discount off of that. So my private clients actually pay me between 5 figures to 6 figures retainer to help them to come in and build the funnels for them. And this is part of me, wanting to give back to the community because of COVID-19. And I know a lot of people have been affected, livelihoods have been affected. And I've been very lucky to be able to learn this skill, and am the first one who brought this into Southeast Asia, and then to implement this webinar system like that and use it for my clients. So it's part of me wanting to work with the school to also give back to the community. So if, let's say, you've ever been interested in learning about webinars, to learn how to monetize that, this is an extremely great opportunity. 600 with a 20% discount, it's, even if you're a Singaporean citizen and you get $600 from the government, like, that only goes so far. But if you put that back into investing in yourself, you really see the returns, because all you need is seriously one client signing up, and you would have made back whatever you invested. So to me, it's a no-brainer decision, as long as you feel like you want to learn a valuable skill that you can apply to any business, that you can apply to any organization that basically charity work, or you're trying to raise funds for investment, anything that you're trying to persuade people, and to do it on a scalable way, right? Like, webinars are a perfect way of doing that. Okay. So I hope that you take advantage of this opportunity. Give me a chance to show you how things will work in the class, and then we'll work together to achieve your goals. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions, so I'll just leave the last screen on what you'll be learning in the course, and then later on, the school would actually send all of you an email to follow up with you and to let you know more of the course dates. Yeah? And if you have any other questions that you think of prior to joining the class, you can definitely just send an email back to the school, and they would forward it to me, and I'll be very happy to answer them for you. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for your time, everybody. And I'll stop the video now, and I'll put the screen for you to know what would be covered. Very welcome, Crystal, Joycelyn, Chai-Fen, and Rina. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. And I'll be very happy to work with you next week to teach all of you step by step how do we implement this webinar system. Yeah. So we have a few more participants still left in the room. And if let's say you have some questions, whether or not it would be worth your time to invest in the course to learn about webinar selling, I can personally say that it has made the biggest move in my business than any other tool that I've been using. It's basically the meat of my business and how we are able to generate 7-figure sales, 6 figures to 7 figures for my clients as well. And it's really through webinar selling. Most people that teach webinar selling, right, they only teach you how to clone certain structures. They don't tell you the psychology behind its structure. And most people do it wrong because it's simply a sharing session for them. It's not any structures, it's not learning how to prime the audience, how to build credibility, none of that. And that's why by the end of the webinar, they found out they have taught so much, but they actually don't have any signups. Like nobody goes for the program because the webinar just doesn't do a good job in monetizing. It may do a very good job in teaching, but not a good job in monetizing. So how do you go from teacher mode, providing lots of content, but not truly being able to change a customer's life by working with them long term? Because we have to be realistic, right? Like a webinar, let's say it's an hour or maximum 3. Like what can it do in 3 hours to change somebody's life? Probably very limited. But it is when they engage you and they go through your program or they go through your service and they engage you that it makes the biggest change in their lives. So by learning these tools, right, whatever you want to do in the future, be it your current business, be it a business you're thinking of, or any other goals that you have, be it for charity work, for getting investment to a company, any ideas that you need to mobilize people to invest in your course and to persuade people to invest in whatever you're doing or to buy from you, learning webinars would be the greatest payoff of all. So yeah, can you show? Okay, so let me just show the QR code slide, okay? So you can scan that.